At the beginning of this story, the Arcadian Empire appears as a kingdom known for notoriously corrupt rulers and extreme defense lines, erected with the promise of keeping the city at peace against anyone who tried to disrupt the rule of those who ruled there. It all began 5 years before the main events, when the humans living in the country created heavy combat suits, equipped with a variety of weapons, prepared to face any armies or organizations that dared challenge them and overthrow the city. No one seemed capable of stopping them until on a full moon night, a dark drag ride knight appeared, wearing black armor, who put an end to the tyranny in one fell swoop and became known as the Black Hero. This fighter possessed overwhelming power and single-handedly defeated and took control of the battlefield, smashing other mechs against the Empire's walls and reducing buildings to ashes. From atop a tower, a girl watched the fight, and when the confrontation ended, she heard footsteps behind her. The sound came from a silver-haired boy named Lux, the prince of the Empire, walking slowly toward the girl, enveloped in a dark aura and wearing an unsettling smile. The girl was terrified and tried to stand her ground, but terror overcame her movement. Lux indicated that she should raise his sword without delay, and she obeyed instantly, overcome by fear and the urgency of the situation. To this day, the identity of this powerful knight in a dark drag ride remains a mystery to the rest of the world. Even so, all who lived in the Empire of Arcadia and witnessed those events continue to tell the story of that night, as a sign of respect for the dark hero who saved the country from a seemingly endless tyranny. No one, however, knows what happened after the city's fall, because the dark hero disappeared and the Empire was taken over again by other leaders without any sign of him. The narrative then jumps forward 5 years. The new rulers rename the empire the Kingdom of Atismat. In this scenario, a boy runs across the rooftops, and in the midst of his escape, plummets into the girls' dormitory, landing inside one of the rooms among the stunned students. The boy, unsure how to react, tries to minimize the impact of the situation and exaggerates his own apologies, wanting to avoid any provocation and not upset anyone. The attempt fails immediately, as one of the students screams loudly, calling Lux useless, and demanding that he leave immediately, in addition to ordering the guards to arrest him. Later, Lux appears chained in a cell in the dungeons beneath the new regime's fortress, held there all day. He appears weak and exhausted and tries to call for someone in the fortress, thirst overwhelming him. At that moment, Krulcifer, a beautiful young woman with blue hair, appears. Lux explains that it was all a huge misunderstanding and claims he was merely chasing a cat that had stolen a woman's purse. He says the chase led the animal across the dormitory's rooftops, and that it ended up plummeting and falling among the girls. Krulcifer shows no patience for what she calls his flimsy excuses and doesn't believe a word he says. Krulcifer declares he seemed like a snoop after the students and demeans Lux as if he were a commoner who thought she was naive. Krulcifer then asks why he was carrying 2 sword-shaped devices, as it was highly unusual for someone to wield 2 such weapons simultaneously. She notes that the black sword was unlike anything she had ever seen, as it was not forged in the current kingdom and appeared to be made of a rare black steel engraved with stones and diamonds. At that moment, Lux states that Krulcifer should not touch that sword. Soon after, another girl appears and intervenes. It is Shurus, who warns Krulcifer that it would not be appropriate to remain there talking to the prisoner. Shurus also informs Lux that the warden wishes to speak with him at that moment. The group then heads to the warden's office, taking Lux under guard. When they reach the warden's office, Lux is greeted by her and realizes that the former empire has been transformed into a sort of academy. The warden appears to know exactly who he is. In front of the other students, the principal explains that his name is Lux, and that he was the prince of the extinct empire of Arcadia, overthrown by a coup that brought the old regime to ruin, and comments that his past weighs heavily as a failure in the eyes of the new power. Some female students claim to have seen Lux observing the students, but the headmistress counters by saying she knows his temperament and that he wouldn't have the courage to spy on girls, even if one of them asked. The headmistress then asks if Lux understands what this place has become, and after some thought, Lux realizes she's in an all-female academy run by the new kingdom of Atismata. The headmistress explains that because of the war 5 years ago, the best male Dryad Knights were lost. This happened because Lux defeated almost all of them during the fall of the empire, leaving only Lux and a few survivors. The headmistress implies that she knows Lux was the Dark Knight known as the Black Hero, but keeps this information secret from the other. The headmistress then states that despite the loss of the best male knights, the girls demonstrate a natural aptitude for piloting the mechanized Dryad. and that the institution's goal is to train them, which is why she wants Lux to work there as an instructor. Lux is surprised because he realizes he's the only boy in the entire academy. The conversation is overheard by several students. Among them is Lusha Etismata, the princess of the current kingdom, who disapproves of his presence as an employee, especially since she was the student he fell on when he broke into the dormitory. Lisha becomes indignant and challenges Lux to a one-on-one duel. The princess announces a simple condition. If Lux wins, he can work at the school. If he loses, he must lay down his weapons, apologize, accept defeat, and remain a prisoner forever. The headmistress declares that she will not interfere in this matter and that the punishment is in the hands of the princess, so Lux must accept the duel. The other students are excited because Lesha Etismata is known as the strongest student, and many want to see a young man defeated and humiliated on the battlefield. The director, however, reminds us that so much euphoria is not appropriate because Lux became famous for winning the Imperial Tournament of the Old Empire and received the nickname of the weakest among the undefeated champions. A nickname that makes Lux laugh inside, since he knows his own history and knows what he is capable of as a dark dried knight, something that almost no one there understands. Later in the day, Lux meets with his sister Aerie, who expresses frustration with his careless way of getting into trouble and the number of accusations of inappropriate behavior that have almost fallen upon him. Aerie's friend, Noct Leaflet, maintains a cautious stance and avoids relaxing around Lux, wanting to double down on her attention until the situation is resolved. Aerie fears Lux will be arrested for acting inappropriately and also fears having to assume the family's debt. The former royal family is treated as criminals, and therefore must pay fines to regain privileges equivalent to those of an ordinary citizen of the kingdom of Etismata. Faced with this situation, Aerie wants Lux to win the duel against Lisha, who also has an undefeated record. Lux, known for being labeled the weakest among the undefeated, agrees to his sister's request. The next day, Lux enters the arena to face Lisha. A stadium packed with students cheers at the clash between a royal figure from the past and the princess of the present. Lisha asks if Lux understands the reason for the duel she proposed. When she realizes he doesn't, Lisha promises to reveal the reason if he wins the fight. Lux draws his sword and equips a wyvern, while Lisha synchronizes her armor with a much more powerful divine dryad called Time. Compared to the wyvern used by Lux, Tiamat has a much more advanced set of controls. Realizing his disadvantage, Lux relies on dodging from the first moves and focuses his entire strategy on defense. Lisha quickly realizes he's trying to force a draw by running out the timer, so she launches drones and then fires a concentrated beam. The blade attached to the wyvern shatters when Lux tries to block Lisha's attack. The princess then summons a burst weapon, and without hiding her impatience, demands that Lux activate the other black sword, which seems much stronger. Even faced with the risk, Aerie remains convinced that her brother becomes obstinate when he sets his sights on a goal and does not give in easily. Aerie concludes that determination can sustain victory. As Aerie had predicted, Lux begins to dodge each shot with increasing precision, which agitates Lisha and prompts her to resort to a special ability available only to divine dryads. While the audience holds their breath and follows the exchange of blows that decides the fate of the only boy in that academy. The ability pulls Lux to the ground, and he realizes that Tiamat's special power is the control of gravity. Immediately after the attack, Lisha becomes visibly tired and loses control of the arm. Elsewhere in the city, a suspicious figure blows a horn and breaks the barriers surrounding the dueling field, simultaneously summoning a creature called Abyss. With the arrival of the Abyss, the people are evacuated to a safe location, while Lux decides to advance and confront the monster. With Lisha's help, Lux devises a plan in which he would serve as bait and Lisha would use the cannon to defeat the creature with a single shot at the agreed signal. Lux takes risks to position the Abyss at the exact spot for the concentrated fire. Lisha fires with perfect timing and the blow lands. As the monster falls, Lux faints inside the wyvern, plummets from the sky and is rushed to a backup room within the academy. The next day, Lux dreams of the past and remembers his half-brother Fejol asking if Lux with the wyvern would cooperate with him and Bahamut. Lux awakens from his fainting spell and finds himself lying on a... As a way of thanking him for protecting her, Lisha decides to help Lux and spends the day checking on him. Lisha considers Lux more humble than the former members of Arcadia's royal family, and Lux explains that he was removed from the imperial court, so he doesn't act like Arcadia's former oppressive leaders. Lisha fulfills her earlier promise and explains the reason for the proposed duel. Lisha shows the crest near her lower abdomen and explains that she wanted to fight because Lux accidentally saw her bathing and she needed to confirm that he would keep the incident a secret. When Lisha asks about the black black sword-shaped device, Lux also avoids explanations, wanting to keep it a secret. As the two grow to understand each other better, Leisha allows Lux to remain a cadet instead of an academy employee, which surprises and appreciatively leaves Lux. The next day, Lux enrolls as a cadet and joins a training class. After introducing himself to the teacher and fellow students, Lux sits next to his childhood friend Philippi, whom he hasn't seen in 7 years and who now displays a more confident presence. Sitting nearby, Leisha is annoyed because she would like to monopolize Lux's attention, but the dynamic in the room changes and others also approach him. At the end of the class, several students learn that Lux accepts small maintenance jobs. Many ask Lux to put his skills to use, and the colleague responsible for organizing the orders distributes forms to anyone who wants to request a job. Leisha asks Lux if she could accompany him as his personal escort. Faced with the crowd, Philippi tries to intervene to help, but Leisha distracts her with a sweet. Crucifer arrives, and reminds Lux of the principal's previous job offer. After leading Lux to a quiet spot, Crucifer explains that she's found a reason for him to get away from the commotion for a while and in return asks Lux to keep an eye out for the night of the Black Drag Ride, known as the Black Hero, because she has business with him. Later, while sleeping, Lux dreams about the past again and sees Fijal say that Philippi would soon be used in a human experiment by the Arcadia Empire. Lux wakes up and realizes she's near Philippi in an awkward situation, which leads to misunderstandings when a classmate passes by in the hallway and spreads rumors throughout the school. During recess, Eri calls Lux out on his reckless behavior and decides to stay away to avoid trouble. At the end of the day, Lux goes to Leisha's workshop to fulfill a service request. Leisha shows Lux his fully repaired wyvern because she feels it's important to support him as a member of the school's Knightly Order. The Knightly Order is a special unit made up of cadets whose skills are recognized. Lux promises to help Leisha build a more just kingdom of Atismata from the ruins of the former Arcadian Empire. Since the formal ceremony of the Knightly Order is still to come, Leisha, acting as escort, invites Lux for a walk to strengthen their bond as teammates. The two arrive at an expensive restaurant, and Leisha tries to go in, but Lux realizes it would be best to avoid spending too much and suggests they manage their expenses carefully. Leisha searches for her wallet and fails to resolve the issue, so Lux proposes a simple snack at a nearby bakery. Later, Leisha shares painful memories with Lux, telling her that she was captured 5 years earlier by the former empire and burned with the crest on her abdomen. Leisha's father, involved in the coup d'etat, was unable to rescue her and eventually became estranged. Leisha says she sometimes feels unworthy of the role of queen because back then, she wished her father would prioritize her life over the country. As the sole survivor of the Atismata family, Leisha asserts she has no choice but to take on this responsibility. Alone at night, Lux understands the burden Leisha carries because he himself doesn't fit the ideal of a prince. Lux falls asleep and remembers when Fijal killed many people against his advice and how Fijal displayed coldness while attacking without even relying on the horn that summons several abyss. Suddenly the sound of a bell awakens Lux. Lux runs outside and finds the professor instructing the cadets about a nearby abyss attack. As a member of the Knightly Order, Leisha sets off for the location with a few companions, while Crucifer instructs Lux to remain at the academy because he hasn't yet been officially inducted into the team. Philippi, who is at the academy, informs Lux about the sound of the horn that echoed in the distance. Meanwhile, Leisha reaches the attack area and hears the horn's whistle, which triggers the emergence of several abyss from a viscous substance in the ground. A merchant with ties to the kingdom of Atismata joins the monsters and reveals himself to be Rigrid Furwaz, former captain of the guard of the Knightly Order of the Arcadian Empire. Noct rushes back to the academy to deliver a status report. Learning the team is in grave danger, Lux decides to go out and help. During the battle, Leisha realizes the enemy numbers are too great to contain. While Leisha is busy holding the line, Rigrid strikes Leisha and violently knocks her down. A group of rebels from the old empire then arrives on the battlefield, further increasing the number of opponents. Piloting the wyvern, Lux reaches the front line and finds Rigrid ripping open Leisha's armor, exposing the crest on her abdomen. Rigrid claims he was the one who burned the crest into her. Leisha refuses to be raped again and throws her sword, which lightly cuts Rigrid's face. Overcome with rage, Rigrid attempts to finish Leisha off, but Lux intervenes and pushes him away. The wyvern takes damage in the process, so Lux unsheathes the black sword. To everyone's surprise, Lux summons Bahamut, the Black Drag Ride from the coup 5 years ago. Watching from afar, Crucifer realizes that Lux is the dark hero she's been searching for. With Bahamut, Lux eliminates the enemy forces with speed and precision. Rigrid, realizing that Lux is the former prince of Arcadia, demands to know why Lux would betray his own empire. Lux ignores the question, neutralizes Rigrid's drag ride, and wins the fight. The next day, the Academy organizes a celebration of Lux's achievements. Many students express admiration and curiosity, although a group led by Sonia remains cautious, due to Lux's ties to the previous regime. To make the occasion more dynamic, the headmistress proposes a competition in which the students attempt to seize a special request form from Lux that he has in his possession. As a reward, Lux would be under the orders of whoever manages to obtain the form for a week. With 1 hour to hide and avoid the candidates, Lux runs outside and tries to escape those who symbolically want to capture him. Intending to protect him, Leisha takes Lux to her warehouse. When Lux is distracted, Leisha wraps the drag ride around him and tries to force him to hand over the form. With Lux cornered, Leisha tries to convince him to relent, and Lux agrees to serve her if he is freed. As soon as she's free, Lux seizes the first opportunity and escapes. Later, Lux hides near a bush, but realizes that Philippi has followed her after being lured by a candy offered by Leisha. Before Philippi can grab the form that falls to the ground, Lux quickly retrieves it and runs again. With 10 minutes remaining in the competition, Lux hides in the Academy's locker room, and takes a deep breath as she considers her next move. Events favor Lux once again when a group of students head to the locker room to change. Krulsifer stops in front of the bookshelves, selects a book, and notices Lux hiding nearby, observing the surroundings to understand the best way to escape. Krulsifer decides to dismiss the other students so they don't see Lux. When the room clears, Krulsifer orders Lux to appear. Lux realizes the competition time is up, and hands her the form, but realizes too late that Krulsifer acted in advance, and accurately calculated the situation. Krulsifer made the clock appear a few minutes ahead of the actual time, thus successfully taking the form while leading Lux to believe the deadline had passed. Lux is distraught over the defeat, and Krulsifer, almost in a whisper, mentions that she will use the special request to get him to accept the role of fake boyfriend. Later, Headmistress Ryu summons Eri and Lux. The headmistress shows the whistle horn recovered from Rigrid in the previous fight, and hypothesizes that it came from deep within the ruins. The headmistress informs her that she will send the nightly order to investigate whether the whistle functions as a key to access sealed area. After the meeting, Eri, suspicious of Krulsifer, wishes Lux luck with this temporary arrangement, as Krulsifer is a transfer student from the theocratic country of Ymir and may be hiding something important. The next day, Lux meets with Krulsifer. Krulsifer confirms that she is a transfer student, and the daughter of a Count of Ymir. Krulsifer explains that the Einfolk family sent her to Atismata with the mission of evaluating high-ranking suitors for the country's political benefit. Krulsifer adds that in a few days, a family butler will come to check on the progress of this search. Krulsifer states that she doesn't want to get married now because she needs to fulfill a personal goal first, and for this reason, she wants Lux to act as her boyfriend for a while to postpone any hasty announcement. Krulsifer makes it clear that she would reveal the recent mess involving the locker room if Lux refused the arrangement. Nearby, Leisha observes the scene and is bothered to see Lux bonding with Krulsifer in this way. That evening, Krulsifer helps Lux with her homework when Leisha enters the room, accompanied by Philippi and Tilfar. Leisha tries to provoke jealousy by saying she once held Lux's hand, because Leisha naively interprets the gestures, and assumes the relationship is progressing quickly. The group decides to preserve Leisha's peace of mind, and avoid misunderstandings. Lux ends the conversation to rest, as he has a false commitment to Krulsifer the next day. The following day, Krulsifer takes Lux to a clothing store. Philippi and Leisha decide to follow them unnoticed. Krulsifer orders custom-made clothes for Lux, who thanks her for her care and acknowledges her efforts. Afterwards, Krulsifer decides to take Lux out for a meal. On the way, two attackers try to intimidate the couple and force them to comply. Lux distracts the enemy in front of her while Krulsifer activates the sword-shaped device, and summons the divine dragride Fafnir. Krulsifer shields Lux from incoming fire and uses the Weissblut technique, which allows her to anticipate enemy movement. With this foresight, Krulsifer accurately neutralizes the attackers' machines. Leisha and Philippi arrive to help, and are surprised to see the situation. One of the enemies tries to flee, but Altarise, Krulsifer's butler, intercepts the retreat. With the situation under control, the group heads to a nearby restaurant. Krulsifer introduces Lux to Altarise, who expresses skepticism about Krulsifer's choice. At that moment, Lord Baltaride appears at the table to meet Krulsifer, as Altarise had already scheduled a meeting of suitors for the next day. Krulsifer makes it clear that she has no interest in this arrangement, and informs her that she is dating Lux as part of the deal. Baltaride, connected to families close to the former Arcadian Empire, emphasizes the difference in social standing by comparing his own status to that of Lux,
a deposed prince. Baltaride proposes a drag ride duel and promises to withdraw if he loses. Baltaride declares that if he wins, Krilsifer must agree to marry him. The following night, Baltaride meets with Hayes, an agent linked to Arcadia, who has the whistle horn. Baltaride believes the whistle is the key to the ruins, but Hayes corrects his assessment and claims the real key is Krilsifer. Baltaride decides he must marry Krilsifer to reach the ruins, and begins taking the steps he sees as the next ruler of the kingdom of Atasmata. The next day, at Night Academy, Krilsifer thanks Lux for his flawless performance as her boyfriend the day before. Leisha overhears the conversation and is relieved to understand the relationship is merely a facade, because Leisha believes she still has a chance to get closer to Lux. Excited, Leisha even suggests adding an accessory to Lux's wyvern for the duel against Baltaride, as Leisha wants to contribute technically. As Lux is overwhelmed with sleep, he searches for a place to rest, but encounters Tilfar along the way. Tilfar leads him to a room prepared for a surprise, where Leisha and Philippi are dressed as attendants, and have organized a large meal for Lux, intending to cheer him up and support him before the challenges. Meanwhile, a conference is taking place at Atasmata Castle. The queen meets with the 4 great nobles to discuss an urgent matter. Each ruin houses a unique and powerful creature called Ragnarok. One of these entities, named Poseidon, shows signs of returning from a fossilized state, which demands immediate action. The nobles decide to prepare before the awakening and coordinate measures to avert a crisis. Org Krilsifer, one of the 4 great nobles, tasks his son Baltaride with investigating the ruins, with the goal of finding weaponry capable of confronting Poseidon. At Night Academy, Ragra Lee gathers the cadets to announce the investigative expedition she had previously planned, intending to reach the depths of the ruins, using the whistle horn as a possible key. Ragra Lee entrusts Lux with the care of the whistle. Lux notices Krilsifer's presence at the meeting and speaks with her afterward. Tibakis, Krilsifer informs her that she will participate in the mission, even as a transfer student, because she sees this expedition as a concrete opportunity to fulfill her own objective, which Lux is still unaware of. Later, Lux goes to the bath to relax before the expedition. A new disagreement occurs when Lux notices Philippi's presence. Lux immediately turns away to avoid embarrassment, and tries to walk away. At that moment, Lux notices that an old scar on Philippi's back seems to have disappeared. Philippi had suffered this injury in the past, but Philippi has no memory of it, while Lux claims to remember it clearly. The confusion leaves Lux stunned, and he decides to leave to regain his composure. The next day, the cadets gather while the professor explains the objectives of the trip to the ruins. Krilsifer, Leisha and Lux are surprised to learn that Baltaride will be participating in the investigation as a special guest. Leisha expresses displeasure at Baltaride's arrival, and Baltaride declares that he will act as the team's protector and will not interfere in other decisions. Next, everyone heads to the ruins in their dragarids, as the mission approaches a decisive point. As the group approaches the ruins, they encounter an abyss named Diablo. The monster charges Noct, but Lux protects her companion. Baltaride fires at the creature, which retreats, while the other cadets also open fire. Krilsifer, with the support of the divine Dragarid Fafnir, activates the Weissblow ability, and precisely freezes the abyss's hand. Baltaride then, using his own divine Dragarid, attacks Diablo again. Displaying considerable strength, Baltaride provokes Lux by proposing an abyss elimination contest, with the condition that the duel scheduled for the next day be cancelled if Lux defeats more enemies than him. Nearby, Diablo attacks again. Krilsifer tries to contain it with the Weissblut, but is unable to accurately predict the creature's movements. Diablo launches a blast of fire at Krilsifer, and Lux saves her in time. Baltaride materializes a large axe and hurls it at Diablo, striking the enemy in the chest. Baltaride taunts Lux, clearly feeling superior in combat and believing he would easily win.
Krilsifer begins to lose confidence because the Weissblut for unknown reasons doesn't respond as she expected. Suddenly, Leisha orders everyone to seek cover as the abyss begins to explode. The cadets erect barriers, and Lux notices Krilsifer's Fafnir losing stability. At the same time, the ruin glows and opens. In a snap decision, Lux wraps Krilsifer with the wyvern and shields her just as the shockwave reaches them, dragging them both into the structure. With the impact, Lux has a flash of memory in which she remembers Fugil checking on her after Lux used a new explosive technique while piloting Fugil's Bahamut. When she regains consciousness, Lux realizes she is in an unfamiliar location. Krilsifer states that they have both been swallowed by the ruin and that therefore they must proceed with caution. The two head toward the altar in the center, as Krulsifer believes the others would tend to converge there. On the way, the fatigue from the previous battle takes its toll, and Krulsifer struggles to walk. Lux suggests a break, but Krulsifer reminds her that she has a goal and few opportunities to achieve it. Therefore, Lux supports her and takes on some of the burden of the march. While supporting her, Lux asks why Krulsifer is looking for the Dark Hero, who is actually Lux himself. Krulsifer explains that regardless of the pilot, a drag ride has a limit of continuous operation, but the Dark Hero seems to escape this rule. Therefore, she believes there is a link between that combatant's nature and her own condition, which leads her to want to find him. At that moment, Krulsifer still doesn't connect Lux with the Dark Hero's identity. Upon reaching the altar, Krulsifer concludes that they arrived first because it is empty. Lux tries to use the whistle horn she received to unlock access inside, but realizes that the altar reacts to Krulsifer's presence without the need for the artifact. Faced with the mechanism's reaction, Krulsifer decides to reveal the secret she's kept from everyone until now. When the passage opens, recognizing the key, Krulsifer confesses that she's not originally from the Einfolk family and isn't even from the human world. Krulsifer claims to be the last survivor of the ruins, and therefore the living key to that place. As they enter, debris falls and blocks the entrance, isolating the two within the path leading from the altar. Further on, Krulsifer walks ahead and tells Lux that she was found as a child inside a capsule similar to the one she had just identified. Krulsifer explains that she was adopted by the Einfolk family, but that her condition as a survivor of the ruins has always created distance, even within her own home. Seeking affection from her siblings, Krulsifer dedicated herself intensely to becoming a drag ride knight, but her proximity to the ruins' legacy has kept her estranged. With no memories of her past, Krulsifer has made investigating the place her life's goal, hoping to reunite with possible compatriots. The lack of evidence leaves her dejected and makes her feel her efforts are fruitless. Lux calms her, gently takes Krulsifer's hands, and reassures her that she is important and has value, regardless of her background. Intrigued by Lux's kindness despite her history with the ancient empire, Krulsifer asks why Lux acts so considerately even though he is the deposed prince of Arcadia. To answer, Lux recalls the time when he and his mother were expelled from court by his father's decision, motivated by his grandfather's criticism of imperial policies. Lux recalls that, after the expulsion, neither the people nor the nobility offered help, and that his mother eventually died in front of him. Lux admits to harboring resentment, but says that, in his darkest hour, Philippi helped him and guided him to transform his anger into empathy. Moved by Lux's journey and the way he redirected his suffering, Krulsifer asks if Lux would support her if he were to become prince of a new kingdom, but her response is interrupted when Lisha appears piloting the drag ride equipped with a drill, demonstrating some practical use for the accessory. Lisha, blushing, makes it clear that she doesn't want Lux and Krulsifer to get too close. Lux doesn't understand the insinuations, and the situation loses focus. Aerie gives Lux some herbal tea and recommends rest, as the duel with Baltzaride approaches. When the time for the confrontation arrives, Lux remains asleep, and it is revealed that the tea has been tampered with. Krulsifer, not wanting Lux to get involved again because of her, used the special form obtained earlier, and convinced Aerie to sedate him, determined to take on the fight alone. At the agreed location, Baltzaride asks about Lux, and Krulsifer ends the matter by demanding that the duel begin without him. To make the supposedly even match, Baltzaride orders Altsarize, his own butler, to step aside and then uses a power on Altsarize, causing him to collapse. Without further delay, Baltzaride and Krulsifer engage in an intense duel, with successive clashes of blades. In a moment of close proximity, Baltzaride provokes contact, and shortly thereafter activates his own ability again. From this point on, Baltzaride proves much stronger, dodging Krulsifer's blows even when she resorts to predicting his movements. With the advantage, Baltzaride knocks Krulsifer down and forces her to abandon Fefnir. Faced with his defenseless adversary, Baltzaride declares that he sees Krulsifer only as a key to the ruins, but is interrupted when Lux appears piloting the Black Hero's drag ride and reveals his identity to Krulsifer. To protect her ally, Lux attacks and, after a single crossing of blades, identifies the true ability of Baltzaride's divine drag ride, absorbing powers from other divine drag ride. Baltzaride, in fact, utilizes Krulsifer's prediction, which he had previously copied. Baltzaride then uses Krulsifer as bait and charges towards her. Lux descends to protect her, creating an opportunity for Baltzaride to attempt to absorb the Black Hero's power as well. With the new advantage, Baltzaride begins to dictate the pace and push Lux onto the defense. As she must block attacks that mirror her own strength, Lux becomes exhausted. Krulsifer, seeing Lux's efforts to protect her, is moved, and tears fall. The gesture restores Lux's determination. Lux decides to finish the fight, and gathering her remaining strength, executes an exceptionally powerful blow that decisively knocks Baltzaride down. Having defeated Krulsifer's suitor, Baltzaride announces him as her new fiancé, which surprises Lux. Lux tries to clear up the misunderstanding, but Baltzaride withdraws and leaves them alone. Krulsifer urges calm, praises Lux's courage, and decides to reward her with a kiss, which confirms their closeness. Lisha, unable to handle the scene, interrupts the moment and expresses discomfort at the possibility of a more serious commitment. A few days later, news circulates at the academy about a hooded figure causing incidents, at the same time as the return of Celestia Ralgris, recognized as the institution's strongest knight, is announced. Since Celestia is known for avoiding contact with men, Lux is given the reconnaissance mission wearing a female uniform to avoid attracting attention. Disguised, Lux walks through the academy unidentified, because his appearance and voice naturally support the disguise. After patrolling for a while, Lux decides to rest on a bench, but hears a low voice coming from a bush. As he approaches, Lux sees a blonde girl talking to a cat. Just then, a suspicious man approaches from behind and tries to attack him. Lux's scream alerts the blonde girl, who steps in front of him to protect him and force the attacker to retreat. Seeing the possibility of reinforcements, the man throws a smoke bomb to escape, and before disappearing, throws a dagger at the girl. Lux places himself between the weapon and the young woman, sustains a minor wound and prevents the blade from reaching her. Later, to treat the cut, the girl takes Lux to the infirmary and asks him to loosen his shirt so she can carefully apply a bandage. Fearing his disguise would be blown, Lux decides to apply the bandage with his back to the girl, allowing her to loosen his shirt just enough to apply the bandage. After treating the wound, Lux prepares to leave, but the blonde asks his name, and as he was pretending to be a student, he gives the name Luna. The young woman then introduces herself as Celestia Ralgris, known as the strongest knight, and expresses a desire to meet Luno again on other occasions. The next day, Krulsifer and Lisha simultaneously approach Lux, both seeking his attention, and Lux tries to defuse the commotion the dispute causes. That night, elsewhere, Hayes enters the cell of Baltzaride, who had survived the confrontation with Lux and remained imprisoned. Baltzaride believes he will be rescued, but Hayes reveals hostile intentions and transforms him into an abyss, as punishment for his defeat by Lux Arcadia. In the next cell, Rugreed watches in horror as he is transformed. Back at the academy, Lux prepares to meet Celestia without disguise, but Tilfar knocks on the door and informs her that Celestia is meeting with the headmistress. The two proceed to the office, where Celestia, who doesn't recognize Luno and Lux, advocates for his expulsion. Lisha opposes Celestia's position and maintains that Lux should remain. When Lux arrives, Celestia thanks him for his help in her absence, but insists it's past time for him to leave, as enrolling a boy in a girls' academy violates a rule. Lux asks for the chance to help fight the Ragnarok Poseidon, but Celestia deems his participation unnecessary. Noticing the impasse, Headmistress Rydery suggests a duel, the winner of which would decide the outcome, and Celestia and Lux agree to fight after the training session on King Island. Later, Sonia goes to Celestia's room and asks what will be done about Lux. Celestia reassures Sonia and states that she intends to keep Lux away from the school, believing it would be in his best interest. When everyone arrives on King Island, training begins immediately, with Celestia in charge of instruction and very strict in conducting the activities. After the exercises, Lux seeks out Charis, because he intends to use the Luno disguise he brought with him. Before he can change, Charis intercepts him and tells him Celestia has called him. In the room, Lux finds Celestia, who is waiting for a massage to relieve muscle tension. Lux stands beside her and performs the massage. When she's finished, Celestia asks for the lighting to be adjusted so she can get dressed, causing Lux to panic and quickly change into the female uniform, resuming her identity as Luna. Realizing Luno was with her the whole time, Celestia is pleased and arranges a meeting at the park for the next day. As she leaves, Lux runs into Sonia, who finds Luno's presence strange and reaches for her gun, but Krulsifer appears nearby, offers a plausible excuse, and diffuses the tension. Later, back at the dorm, Philippi appears in the middle of the night in her pajamas, and Lux explains that she's in the wrong room and that the girls' dorm is in another section. Philippi affirms that she won't allow Celestia to expel Lux, and emphasizes that she will remain by his side, which comforts Lux about their long-time partnership. The next day, Lux returns to her Luno disguise and encounters Celestia, who takes her to a swimsuit store. Afraid of compromising her cover, Lux leaves in a hurry, and Celestia concludes that she acted inconsiderately. To reassure her, Lux emphasizes that Celestia serves as a role model for the younger students and encourages her to maintain her leadership role. Celestia calms down, hugs Luno, and follows him to a nearby park, where they share a simple snack. During the conversation, Celestia discusses the main misconception people have about her, that many believe she hates men, which is untrue. Lux realizes she also misinterpreted Celestia's behavior and reconsiders her own impression. The next day, the Atasmata Castle patrol learns that the fossilized Poseidon has awakened and escaped into deep waters. Unaware of this escape, the knights continue their activities near King Island. Celestia and Sonia change into appropriate swimming gear and prepare for training. As they prepare, Celestia explains to Sonia that the real reason for trying to expel Lux is her own difficulty with the opposite sex, not aversion, and adds that she cannot allow herself to become romantically involved, because she bears the responsibility of being the eldest daughter of House Ralgers, one of the 4 great noble family. At the beach, Lux observes her classmates in their swimsuits, and encounters Leisha, who is concerned about her visible coat of arms. Lux tries to calm her down, but Leisha misinterprets her approach. Celestia and Sonia rejoin the cadets, and immediately question Director Riri, noticing that training is not progressing. Riri observes that Celestia herself is not wearing specific training attire. Celestia remembers that Luno had suggested a specific outfit, and starts searching for Luno on the beach, but Riri informs her that she doesn't know anyone by that name. Realizing that his disguise is at risk of being exposed, Lux is taken by Tilfar Noct and Charis into the woods, where his classmates insist that he maintain his Luno identity. Lux refuses the demand and runs away, bumping into Celestia, who is irritated by the commotion. Celestia and Sonia return to camp, disgruntled, having failed to make progress in the collective training. As Celestia walks away, Lux recalls the conversation from the previous day when, still as Luno, she overheard Celestia express her desire to apologize to Lux for having been trained by Wade Robalt, Lux's grandfather, whose death she believes she bears the blame for. Celestia wants to protect Lux from any plot that might trap him in similar situations, and therefore intends to keep him out of trouble. Lux, however, feels he must remain at the academy and decides to fully commit to the duel. Outside the camp, the hooded man meets with Hayes to discuss the next day's plan. When the time for the fight arrives, Lux and Celestia head to the duel arena. Celestia appears with the divine Dragride Lindworm, and Lux chooses the waiver. Ari comments to Noct that Lux is trying to keep Bahamut a secret from the Knightly Order, which is still unaware of this detail. Meanwhile, in the dense forest, the hooded man is intercepted by Tilfar and Charis, who identify the spy as an agent of the Heiberg Republic. After finding letters addressed to that country containing classified academy information, they conclude that the previous incidents were a ploy to confuse Lux, and recognize Sonia behind the disguise. Sonia confirms the agreement, abandons her cape, and declares her intention to eliminate everyone on the island to strike the kingdom of Atisma. Sonia summons the drag ride, and upon hearing a whistle demonstrates an unusual increase in power, something Tilfar and Charis had never witnessed. Nearby, Hayes blows the whistle horn, further amplifying Sonia's capability. Then the Ragnarok Poseidon emerges from the ground, and interrupts the duel between Lux and Celestia. As the cadets rush to safety, Ari realizes that Philefi is missing. In the forest, Philefi begins to feel weak for an unknown reason, but Director Riri, Philefi's older sister, arrives in time to protect her. Back on the beach, Celestia, against Lux's suggestion, activates the Divine Dragride's Divine Gate ability and teleports near Poseidon. Celestia lands an initial blow, but finds Sonia and Hayes there. Because Hayes is wearing a cloak, Lux briefly mistakes her for Felix. Hayes blows the whistle horn, triggering Poseidon's reaction, while Sonia attempts to strike Celestia but is stopped by Lux's waiver. Sonia retreats, Poseidon spreads a black smoke screen, and visibility disappears. Hidden in the smoke, Celestia admits to Lux that she feels responsible for his grandfather's death, and expresses deep regret. In the past, Celestia learned of corruption within the ancient Arcadian Empire, and told Wade Robalt, Lux's grandfather. Wade exposed the system, was executed for it, and as a result, Lux and her mother were banished. Celestia carries the guilt for not keeping quiet about the information she heard and believes it triggered tragedies in Lux's life. In addition to considering that she dragged him back into the fight against Poseidon, Lux comforts her
her and makes it clear that she does not hate her. Afterwards, Lux abandons the Wyvern, unsheathes the black sword-shaped device, and Celestia realizes that the device was the same one associated with Luno. Lux reveals that he was disguised as Luno, and states that he will accept any punishment later. In the immediate present, Lux decides to use Bahamut to end the fight. Lux quickly severs all of Poseidon's tentacles and defeats Ragnarok, despite the threat. Upon being defeated, Poseidon releases a crystal, which Shanya immediately collects. Sanya lifts Haze and remains suspended nearby. When Haze removes the cloak, Lux realizes the mistake, and understands it wasn't Philo. Haze declares he intends to resurrect the nightmare from 5 years ago, but Lux doesn't understand the reference. When the situation stabilizes, Lux tends to Celestia's wounds at the camp. With trust restored, Celestia allows Lux to join the knightly order and allows him to remain at the academy. That night, Lux reflects on Haze's words about what allegedly happened on the island 5 years earlier. Lux tries to search for memories, and finds only fragmented images of injured people. Suddenly, the ground shakes violently, and everyone leaves their tents to watch something colossal rise from the sea. Director Riri informs them that one of the ruins is emerging before them, and announces the plan to explore the interior the day after tomorrow. The next day, as the team prepares for the expedition, Lux goes to check on Philefi, having felt weak the day before. Lux recalls an old incident in which John, his half-brother Philo, damaged a statue and blamed Philefi. Lux knew Philefi was innocent and took responsibility to protect her, which strengthened their friendship. In the present, Philefi wants to join the cadets in the ruin raid. Lux expresses concern for her health, but Philefi insists on accompanying the group. Lissa calls Lux to her station and teaches her the Bahamut's over-limit technique. Lissa explains that the technique removes the Dragrad's limiter and increases its power, but it involves risk, as the release sequence can endanger the pilot's life. The next day, the cadets gather in front of the ruin. With the Ragnarok Poseidon defeated, Riri considers it possible that the passage to the deepest layer has opened. Eri explains that the ancient writing at the center of the ruin will pull everyone inside after a set interval. Following Eri's instructions, the group passes through the entrance when the mechanism activates. Inside, the scene is desolate. Noct scans the area for abyss and confirms they are in the first basement. Eri reports that the ruin spans 11 underground levels. The team begins reconnaissance, and soon reaches an area with plants, but the environment reveals signs of imbalance. Crew Lucifer observes the terrain markings, and surmises that a serious event has affected the local ecosystem. Crew Lucifer, Lissa, and Charis take the 4th basement. Telfar, Riri, and Philefi take the 5th. Lux, Ari, and Noct descend to the 6th. Eri entrusts the 3rd basement to Celestia, believing she has enough strength to operate alone. Celestia expresses dismay at being isolated, and Lux suggests a mid-session meeting with his team, which encourages Celestia and persuades her to accept the arrangement. While Lux's team explores the 6th basement, Noct detects a signal on the visor and rules out Abyss's presence. The group proceeds to the source of the alert. Lux removes the debris and finds a girl under the rocks. Surprised, they call Crew Lucifer because of her connection to the ruin. Considering the risk of remaining with too many people around, Crew Lucifer directs Noct and Eri to meet Lisha's group and decides to investigate the girl with only Lux nearby. Crew Lucifer touches the young woman's face, who immediately awakens. Recognizing Crew Lucifer as the ruin's administrator, and saying she lost some of her memories, requesting programming repair. Crew Lucifer doesn't remember performing this role, so the young woman introduces herself as La Crush, the ruin's supervisor. La Crush explains that she is an automaton from an ancient era. Crew Lucifer asks about past records, but La Crush claims the data is temporarily unavailable due to the prolonged hibernation period and adds that the ruin's functions have been suspended. To reactivate the systems and recover the memories, La Crush informs Crew Lucifer that she needs to identify herself as the administrator in the control room and issue the restore command. To share their findings, Lux and Crew Lucifer reconvene with the other team. Lux notices that Philefi is again showing signs of weakness. Crew Lucifer expresses concern over La Crush's words, which mentioned a creator above the administrator's level. According to La Crush, the administrator is Crew Lucifer herself, suggesting the existence of an owner with higher authority than hers. With more sectors to inspect, Eri informs them that the 7th level is the so-called production area, and proposes focusing the search from there. Meanwhile, at Etismata Castle, news arrives that Rigrid has escaped from prison and is preparing a rebel army. The group arrives at the production area and finds numerous capsules containing Abyss. Philefi becomes alarmed, sensing enemies approaching. Nearby, Haze uses the whistle horn to force the creatures to emerge. A Diablo charges at Lux, who manages to defend herself after a brief struggle. La Crush explains that when the ruin goes on alert, it releases 3 abyss, 2 outside and 1 inside. To protect the people on the island, Felifi and Lux rush out of the ruin and leave Riri and Telfar's care inside the complex. Noticing that Felifi seems to know where the abyss are, Lux asks if she's ever been to that ruin, but receives no answer. Outside, Lux begins to recover memories of the nightmare from 5 years ago. Suddenly, a Diablo throws Felifi against the wall. Lux quickly eliminates the 2 Diablos and rushes to her aid. Lux then realizes that an underground area has opened beneath the building Felifi struck. He descends through the cracks, and as he progresses, sees flashes of the past that come back to him with renewed force. Lux remembers that the underground space served as a human experimentation area during the ancient empire. Lux recalls being there 5 years earlier, and begins to see flashes that suggest Felifi was also taken there. However, Lux believes he only recently met Felifi again, 7 years after their first encounter, and this discrepancy confuses him, when his memories suggest she was there with him in that past. As he tries to organize his memories, Lux finds Felifi nearby and rushes toward her, but notices she has a fever. Felifi warns him that there is an abyss in the same room, and suddenly grabs Lux's neck with a look that reveals the abyss's presence within her. On the verge of fainting, Lux relives the moment of her first kiss with Felifi, calling out her name, and the reaction causes Felifi to resist the abyss's control. When she releases him, Hayes appears on the scene. Inside the ruins, the cadets manage to defeat the creature. Crew Lucifer and Leisha team up and neutralize one of the Diablos, while the others advance their investigation. The group locates the door leading to the deepest part of the complex, but lacks the key to open it. Unaware that Crew Lucifer is the living key, Eri and the cadets search for alternatives to access the interior. In the experimentation chambers, Lux raises his sword against Hayes, who warns him that Felifi will die if he acts without caution. Hayes, who had previously declared his intention to bring the nightmare back to the island, reveals that he implanted the seed of Ragnarok itself within Felifi. As part of the plan, worms consume her body from within, and transform Felifi into a hybrid, forcing her to obey Ragnarok. Felifi weakens precisely because she resists the command, and tries to maintain her consciousness. Hayes explains the command given to Ragnarok, which is to eliminate Lux. Since this order would push Felifi to suffering and death, Hayes proposes a deal. In exchange for ordering Ragnarok to save Felifi, Hayes demands that Lux use Crew Lucifer to open the door to the final level. Upon leaving, Hayes answers who he is, suggests a relationship, and points out the similarity in hair color. As soon as Hayes leaves, Lux takes Felifi back to camp. Felifi can't remember what happened just before arriving. Lux helps Felifi feed, because her weakness prevents her from doing so on her own. During the care, one of Felifi's eyes takes on the appearance of the abyss, and Lux decides to leave the room. In the hallway, Russari, Felifi's older sister, appears worried. Lux informs Russari that Felifi was the target of human experimentation on that island 5 years earlier. Russari says she knows Lux tried to help back then, but that Felifi died during that time, and that the person before them now is a resurrected, hybrid version, partially linked to the abyss. Russari explains that she brought everyone to the island to search, in the deepest layers of the ruin, for a solution capable of saving Felifi. Lux remembers how Felifi supported him through his grief over his mother's death, and decides to help Russari reach the deepest level. Next, Lux encounters Leisha, who has already completed repairs to Bahamut. While Leisha seeks out Director Russari to request authorization to use overload mode, Lux receives a call from Philly.
Fugel is angered by Hayes' use of the whistle horn, and knowing Lux wants to save Felifi, suggests that Lux destroy her horn and defeat the Ragnarok that controls the seed within Felifi. After the summons, Lux goes to see Felifi before leaving for the ruin. Felifi claims to know about the abyss invading her. Lux hugs her tightly, and expresses gratitude for her friendship, renewing her promise to free her from its control. At the ruin's entrance, Krulcifer, aware of the situation, agrees to open the door to the deepest level. As they pass through, the cadets are struck by the emptiness of the place. La Crush suddenly regains her memory, declares the cadets enemies, and aligns herself with Hayes. On the final level, Hayes reveals that he tricked the group into opening the door and that he brought Felifi in abyss form, breaking the agreement made with Lux. Hayes uses the whistle horn, and orders Felifi in armor to attack the cadets. Faced with the threat, everyone equips their drag. La Crush, who has spare units, launches armor in automatic mode against Lux. During combat, Lux notices that the autonomous armors move at an abnormal speed, a sign that they can use overlimit. The cadets struggle to contain Philippi in Abyss mode because her divine drag ride's ability, Missing Fate, nullifies the capabilities of other divine drag rides. Seeing her companions in danger, Eri acts quickly using the whistle horn that Ryuri had previously given to Lux. Meanwhile, Hayes attempts to place the Poseidon crystal on the deep-level altar, but is interrupted by Fujil. Hayes hears the sound of a whistle, without having blown her own horn, and rushes back to the battlefield. Eri is the one blowing the whistle horn. Hayes tries to respond with his own, but Philippi stops him, because the strength of Hayes' command has diminished to the point that Philippi has returned to her normal form. With the momentary advantage, the cadets demand Hayes' surrender. Refusing to accept, Hayes summons another Ragnarok with the power of the horn. The cadets open fire, but the Ragnarok uses branches to trap them, and regenerates with each attack. Faced with this disadvantage, Lux asks Lisha for permission to activate Bahamut's overdrive. Lisha hesitates due to the risk, but authorizes it due to the danger the Ragnarok poses. Lux charges into combat, cuts down the enemy, but is captured by the controlled branches. Lisha transmits the release code from the timeout, and Lux manages to enter overdrive. With increased power, Lux eliminates the Ragnarok at high speed. Surprising Hayes, the ruin begins to collapse toward the sea, and everyone evacuates. After the confrontation, Lux and the cadets return to camp. To repay the help, Philippi tends to Lux, who used overlimit in the battle. During the conversation, Philippi reveals that she gained resistance to the whistle horn, due to the shock inside the ruin. Lux is relieved, as this reduces the immediate risk to her life. Philippi thanks Lux for keeping her promise to protect her despite the difficulty. The next day, Lux returns to the academy, and is surprised by a celebration for her recent achievements. After the long stay on the island, Ryuri wants to mark the group's return despite having been reprimanded by her superiors for leading the expedition without authorization. Ryuri believes the reprimand was mild because the leader's attention is focused on the grand event in the royal capital of Atesmata, the National Foundation Festival, which celebrates the kingdom's 5th anniversary. When Lusha tries to approach Lux, Krulucifer invites him on a date. Lusha is taken aback by Krulucifer's confidence, and discovers that the competition will become even more heated, as Celestia and Philippi also want time with him. Before the situation gets out of hand, Ryuri suggests that Lux make a choice. Unable to decide immediately, Lux opts to meet her friends separately the next day. On the morning of the meeting, Eri accompanies Lux to her meeting with Celestia. Along the way, Eri explains that there will be a drag ride battle segment during the Foundation Festival, a tournament in which representatives from various countries compete for the right to research the ruin. Eri informs them that this time, Lux and the members of the Knightly Order will represent the country, but makes it clear that she opposes his participation, as Lux has just recovered from the battle on King's Island. Before parting, Eri warns that a powerful knight known as the Dagger of the Empire has escaped from prison in the capital, and Eri suspects the fugitive may target Lux, since he defeated the Arcadian Empire. Charis, Noct and Tilfar, responsible for coordinating Lux's outings, provide him with more formal attire. Lux and Celestia begin their tour of the festival booths, and after a while rest near a fountain. Lux lightheartedly mentions the incident when Celestia accidentally drank something alcoholic and became dizzy. Grateful for the company, Celestia tries to shake Lux's hand, loses her balance, and pulls Lux down. The situation causes slight embarrassment, and Tilfar turns the incident into a joke to ease the tension. With the meeting over, the coordinators announce their next appointment with Krulucifer. Krulucifer invites Lux to a hall where nobles and knights gather on the eve of the All-Dragon tournament, and asks Lux to accompany her in a dance. Lux admits to having little experience, and Krulucifer offers to lead him as the music begins. At sunset, Krulucifer goes to the balcony and laughs, remembering Lux's clumsy dance moves. Krulucifer explains to Lux that she arranged the meeting because Altariz wanted to check on her, and to maintain the appearance of engagement, asks Lux to collaborate with a staged gesture of affection. Lux agrees, and Tilfar observes Krulucifer's natural handling of everything. Afterwards, the meeting planners accompany Lux to her appointment with Philippi. As usual, Philippi wears simple, comfortable clothes. Upon arriving at the chosen location, Philippi reveals that she preferred a church because she wanted a calm environment. Philippi takes Lux inside, asks him to rest peacefully, and offers her lap to ease his accumulated fatigue. Due to minor unforeseen circumstances, Lux avoids any embarrassment and decides to take a nap. After an hour of restful sleep, Lux goes out and finds Lissa, who expresses some frustration at not being chosen for a date. Lyssa, however, acknowledges that the choice was difficult and doesn't press the issue. Lyssa explains that she wanted to speak to Lux to ask a favor and asks him to become her knight, because after graduation she will need a trustworthy assistant to share her responsibility. Lux considers that his past ties to the ancient empire could complicate her life, but Lyssa says that despite the potential difficulties, she considers introducing him to the country alongside her on the last day of the Foundation Festival. Lyssa demands that Lux give an answer by that date and leaves in embarrassment. The next day, Lux informs Eri of the decision to participate in the All-Dragon tournament. Eri calls the move reckless and stipulates that Lux will only be able to use her primary weapon for 12 minutes during the tournament, as there are still active threats. While listing dangers like Hayes and Rigreed, Eri reminds her that the assassin known as the Dagger of the Empire has escaped. During the conversation, Yuruka suddenly appears and claims to have been a knight of the ancient empire, declaring that she will now follow Lux's orders, seeing him as her master. The situation escalates too quickly, and Lux asks her to wait for instructions in front of Eri. Later, with Lisha already rehearsing her speech for the festival, Lux enters the room, discusses the previous day's request, and considers possibilities. Meanwhile, Hayes, Sonya, and Yuruka activate another ruin in a different location. Soon after, the nobles summon Lux and Eri to discuss Rigreed's plan to overthrow the new kingdom after the drag raid tournament. Lux is ordered to act as bait to lure over 100 abyss hiding in uninhabited villages near the kingdom, promising to mitigate the consequences of the Ray Island incident. The nobles also demand that Lux win the tournament, and he accepts both tasks despite Eri's opposition. Upon returning to the academy, Lux requests another modification to Lisha's wyvern, but spots Yuruka. They discuss Yuruka's reasons for serving Lux despite the Empire's demise. Yuruka explains that he is fulfilling a promise made to his deceased younger brother and makes it clear that he intends to destroy the new kingdom and restore the Empire to honor this agreement. Since Lux refuses to destroy the kingdom, Yuruka treats him as an enemy and leaves. During the tournament, Lux wins his own fight, but Krulsifer notices that he forces a quick victory, unlike his usual style. After the match, Lux asks Eri to relay a message if he doesn't return for the team state. Later, Lyssa's match begins, and everything goes well until Yuruka manipulates Lisha's armor, forcing an attack on the audience. Lyssa is detained, and the armor is seized. Meanwhile, Lux finds Sonya releasing Abyss and lures the creatures to the kingdom's soldiers, who manage to eliminate them. Fulfilling her promise to Lux, Eri explains the operation to the girls, who decide to find Yuruka and rescue Lisha. As Lux tries to rest, insurgents led by Rigreed attack and eliminate the remaining soldiers, while the main force retreat. At the academy, the students learn of the insurgents' advance toward the capital. Lux confronts Rigreed, who reveals that a large stone golem piloted by Hayes is approaching the capital, forcing Lux to summon Bahamut even though she knows she can only use it for 12 minutes. The fight continues, and Rigreed manages to tear off an arm of the supposed Bahamut, only to discover it was a wyvern in disguise. Lux quickly defeats Rigreed and his men and heads to the capital, maintaining contact with Eri. Meanwhile, Lisha receives a visit from Sonya, who tries to humiliate her and orders a subordinate to expose the Empire's mark, but Lux arrives in time to prevent it. Lux encourages Lisha, who is feeling dejected and guilty, to return to the fight. Hayes demands the surrender of the new kingdom, but is attacked and momentarily restrained by Lux, Lisha, Krulsifer and Philippi. Lux orders Krulsifer and Philippi to deal with the Abyss and the remaining insurgents, while he and Lisha focus on the Colossus. Soon after, Hayes returns in his own divine drag ride and launches a strike that cuts through the city, putting the defenders under enormous pressure. Elsewhere, Celestia confronts Sonya, who threatens the noble. While Lux searches for an entry point into the giant, Lisha faces Hayes alone and finds herself at a disadvantage. When Lux finds a passage, he is stopped by Yuruka, who intends to restore the Empire under Eri's leadership because Lux continues to reject her proposal. Lux questions Yuruka's motives once again, and then she tells the full story. Yuruka was a princess, and her twin brother inherited the throne after their father died of illness. In exchange for Yuruka's cooperation with the Empire, her brother's life would be spared, but while she was away, nobles from his own kingdom killed him as a peace offering, placing all the blame on him by surrendering to the Empire. Yuruka eliminated the nobles in retaliation, and decided to fulfill her contract with the Empire, believing it was her destiny. Lux, however, compares Yuruka's stance to Lisha's, who tries to do her best despite holding a position that often weighs heavily on her. The battle continues, and Lux ultimately wins by taking advantage of Yuruka's brief distraction when he mentions his brother in his own speech. Lux explains that he wanted to change the country for the better and failed, and that to achieve this, he had to first destroy the empire and rebuild it from scratch, making Yuruka understand that everything Lux accomplished was for a future different from the old regime. Celestia defeats Sanya, but the giant reactivates, and prepares to attack the capital. Yuruka, who decides to return to Lux's service, betrays Hayes and destroys the Colossus's controls at the last minute. Overcome with rage, Hayes attempts to devastate the capital alone, and is ultimately defeated by Lux. At the festival's closing, Lisha delivers her speech and publicly announces Lux as her knight, receiving the people's approval. During the celebration, Lux spots Fugil holding a sword device that resembles Bahamut's, and watches Fugil walk away silently. Lux is then surrounded by his friends, including Yuruka, who begins to tease him openly, and an irritated Lisha demands that Lux clarify once and for all who he loves. But before he can answer, the season ends. Like if you enjoyed and subscribe for more videos.